Chapter 464, Unlocking Potential. While the five Cage were discussing matters regarding their alliance, Yuna made a quick detour back to Konoha to improve the alliance's war potential. She teleported into the Hokage's office and quickly found what she was looking for, an old man lying on a couch, reading a love story. "Yo, old man, we need to talk." The old man, who obviously was Hiruzen, glanced at Yuna for a split second before focusing back on his book. "I would really appreciate it if you stopped breaking into my house. This is the Hokage's office." Hiruzen was slightly surprised by Yuna's words and gave his surrounding another glance. He was pretty sure that he was at home when he started reading today. He thought about the situation for a moment before simply shrugging his shoulders as he continued reading. Interesting. "Oh, well, what do you want, Yuna? Another war will begin very soon." "Oh? War? That's not very nice. Who are we fighting, and what have you done to make them attack us?" "Okay, first of all, this might surprise you, but I'm actually not responsible for this war." "That does surprise me." "Well, I almost started one with Kuma." "That doesn't. But that's beside the point. Anyway, our enemy this time is Akatsuki." Hiruzen couldn't help but look at Yuna weirdly when he heard that name. He couldn't understand why Konoha would wage war against a single person, and even more important, Akatsuki. Isn't that the guy who attacked Konoha a few days ago? Pretty sure I killed him. Yuna couldn't help but facepalm when she heard Hiruzen's words. Could you at least try to keep up with what is happening in the world? Akatsuki is an organization, not a person. Ah, okay. When Yuna saw that Hiruzen was barely paying her any attention, she could only shake her head with a wry smile. "Fine, let's get to the meat of the matter. Will you be joining this war?" "No, I won't." That's right, the embodiment of the Wall of Fire just said he wouldn't help fight for the sake of Konoha. Yuna could only shake her head when she saw this. After all, she could clearly see the greed in Hiruzen's eyes. "Let's not bother playing games, Hiruzen. How many?" 10. 5. 9. 6. 7. 7. Hey, you were supposed to say 8. "I don't have time for games, I need new reading material." Yuna chuckled a little when she heard Hiruzen's words, and with a flick of her wrist, 7 neatly stacked books appeared, and Hiruzen instantly grabbed one and opened it. His eyes widened in terror when he saw the first page's content. "Why is it empty?" "In no way, we never specified what we were talking about, so did you trick me?" While Hiruzen was getting relatively close to tears, Yuna rolled her eyes at him. "You should know me by now, old man. I don't go against the deals I make. These 7 books are real, but their content will only become visible after I remove the seals on them." Hiruzen sighed in relief when he realized that Yuna didn't trick him as he patiently waited for her to resume talking. "I will remove the seals as soon as the war is over. In other words, the sooner we win, the faster you can read your books." Hiruzen's eyes became crimson as his face twisted into a demon-like form while powerful killing intent flooded the room. So it's like that. In other words, those Akatsuki bastards are the ones stopping me from getting more reading material. Good. Very good. This old man will serve them a massacre they will never forget. Yuna nodded in approval at Hiruzen's words and was just about to teleport away when Hiruzen's mood shifted from rough to something else. He slightly lowered his head while simultaneously glancing upwards at Yuna. "Could you unseal one of them right now?" Hiruzen was currently trying to give Yuna puppy dog eyes. Yuna recoiled in disgust when she saw what Hiruzen was trying to pull. She quickly waved her hand, causing the seals on the book Hiruzen was holding to vanish. Hiruzen's nose instantly disappeared behind the book as he started reading immediately. "You can have one, but only if you promise me to never look at me like that again." Hiruzen only absent-mindedly nodded his head, causing Yuna to chuckle in amusement. This old man has reached quite the high level of shamelessness. Not bad. A rather natural outcome considering how often he was exposed to your presence. True. Since Yuna was done here, she teleported away and reappeared inside the Uzumaki compound. Welcome back, Yuna-sama. She was immediately greeted by Karen, who was the target of her teleportation. What would you have done if she was currently on the toilet? Enjoy the show. Why did I even ask that? Yo, Karen, a war is about to start, and I wanted to talk to you before it starts. Oh. As expected of Yuna-sama. The conference only started yesterday, and you already managed to start a war. Truly impressive. Yuna's face darkened when she heard Karen's words. Karen, do you want to get punished? Yes, Yuna-sama Tilda. Seeing Karen's eager expression, Yuna's face darkened even more, causing Karen to worry a little. No, I'm talking about a real punishment. Karen's face paled when she heard Yuna's threat. Although she had no idea what Yuna was planning to do, she did not doubt that if Yuna wanted to, she could easily come up with a punishment Karen wouldn't enjoy. So, Karen bowed her head instantly and apologized. I'm sorry for my cheeky behavior, Yuna-sama. Yuna's dark mood faded away instantly as she started petting Karen's head with a smile on her face. Karen could only sigh in relief when she realized that Yuna was just playing around. Well, this matter aside, as I was saying, there will be a war. Karen nodded in understanding and patiently waited for Yuna to continue speaking. In this war, if you manage to achieve an excellent record, I will reward you by fulfilling any one wish you might have. Karen froze up completely when she heard Yuna's words, and it took her quite a while to restart her brain. Gulp anything? Yes. As long as it is within my power to do. Around 100 different perverted scenarios popped up in Karen's mind all at once, but she discarded all of them instantly. No, it can't just be anything. It needs to be an act of depravity that tops all acts of depravity. A true magnum opus. While Karen was flooding the floor with drool, Yuna decided to leave. After all, it would probably take Karen a while to get out of her daze. Chapter 465, Unlocking More Potential. A middle-aged man with long, white, spiky hair was currently sitting in a dimly lit room. He wore the usual shinobi headband on his forehead, but instead of his affiliation, it had the word of study carved into it. Additionally, he was constantly murmuring to himself while furiously scribbling on dozens of scrolls that were spread all around the room. Damn it, I can definitely break through those seals. Definitely. I'm so close. Last time, I managed to break open the seal, just to be met with a stronger one, but I have reached the last one this time. I'm sure of it. My guts are telling me that I'm almost there. Just a little further. Yo, young pervert, I wasn't expecting you to be the academic type. Suddenly, another person appeared in the room and started talking to Jiraiya, almost causing him to change the color of his underwear in shock. Shit. Don't sneak up on me like that, Yuna. I wasn't sneaking up on you at all. I banged on the door for like half a minute, and when no one answered, I decided to lockpick it. Don't casually lockpick people's doors either. Yuna waved Jiraiya's complaint away and sat down opposite him, glancing at the spread-out scrolls that all contained some complex sealing formulas. Not bad. He reached the level of Naruto when he was around 11 years old. A few more years and he should be able to break through the current security system of the compound's bathhouse. That is, of course, only if I don't give him a little motivation. There will be a war soon, and I came here to give you a little motivation. What? A war? What did you do to cause another nation to attack US? Don't tell me you managed to provoke the whole world. It isn't US against everyone else, right? Right. Yuna's eyebrows twitched in irritation when she heard Jiraiya's accusation. Why is everyone instantly assuming that I was the cause of the war? Because it's reasonable. Besides, didn't you almost cause a war with Kuma? Sai, what can I say? Is it really my fault that I'm so beautiful that nations are willing to go to war for me? Ah, I see, your ability to change your own memories at will was activated yet again. Yuna ignored Kurama's comeback and shook her head. I'm not the initiator. Akatsuki has declared war against the world. Jiraiya sighed in relief when he heard that Konoha wouldn't have to fight the whole world and nodded his head, waiting for Yuna to resume speaking. Anyway, that's not why I came here. As she said that, she pulled out a stack of 5 books and placed them on the table, causing Jiraiya to swallow some saliva. Gulp, is that what I think it is? It is. Jiraiya moved at lightning speed, picked up the first book, and instantly started reading. However, it's empty. He gave the book another glance and realized that some seals were written on it. To read the content, you have to break the seal concealing it. Jiraiya's eyes widened in surprise, and moments later, steel-like determination appeared on Jiraiya's face. He completely ignored Yuna and got to work. Nevertheless, there is something else Yuna had to mention. These are sorted by difficulty, with the book on the bottom having the highest one. Frankly, after you are capable of unsealing the last book, you should be capable of breaking through the current seal protecting the Uzumaki clan's women's bathing area. Although Jiraiya wasn't paying much attention to Yuna's words at first, when she said the last part, his head immediately shot up, and he looked at Yuna in surprise. Seriously? Seriously? Fire seemed to come out of Jiraiya's eyes as his determination soared to unknown heights, and he quickly resumed deciphering the seals. Considering that we will likely face the Ida Tensei, an additional skilled seal master should be rather helpful for this war. This should allow him to break through his limit. Sire, he is so blinded by his desire for porn that he didn't even notice that you said current seal. When do you plan to upgrade it again? Naruto is currently doing it. Sire, 3 people, all of whom get motivated by something perverted. It is how it is. A few days later, the talks about the alliance and the incoming war ended, and the 5 Kage returned to their respective villages to prepare for the war. Yuna and Naruto were currently inside the Hokage office and were looking at Tsunade with dead eyes, while Tsunade had a stoic expression on her face. Moments later, Yuna started speaking. So, just so I don't misunderstand the situation, you want to send Naruto and me to a remote, isolated island to survey animals even though a massive war could start any time soon. Tsunade hardly reacted to Yuna's words and only nodded her head, causing Yuna to snort in disdain. Tsunade, are you perchance doubting my intelligence? Tsunade's expression faltered for a moment, and then she simply sighed in defeat. Look, Yuna, that stupid Raikage wanted me to send you out on a mission to prevent you two from getting captured. I insisted that there was no way you would fall for that, but that stubborn fool wouldn't budge. Yuna could only sigh when she heard Tsunade's words as a sad expression appeared on her face. Sire didn't want to do it, but I guess there is no other choice. Someone just earned himself another cock slap. If it were a year ago, Tsunade would have probably chided Yuna for potentially causing an international incident. However, Ma, just don't overdo it. If he dies from a heart attack due to his anger, we lose a valuable combat asset. Tsunade has pretty much stopped giving a shit as well. If Sasuke were a little older, she would have already straight up walked towards him and put the Hokage hat on him. Haha, no worries. I know where his bottom line is, and I also know how far I can cross it before things genuinely go to shit. Tsunade simply nodded her head at Yuna's rather dangerous statement and pondered whether she should get herself another drink. After all, why not? Why shouldn't I do it? She glanced at the stacks of paperwork on her desk and then casually let them disappear into one of her storage seals. Sasuke can worry about those oh no, will you look at that? All my work is already done, I guess it's time to have some fun. Meanwhile, Yuna was still looking at the mission scroll she was holding and shrugged her shoulders. Oh well, might as well go and take a look. Chapter 466, Yuna's Defeat. Deep underneath the Uzumaki compound, Yuna and Enko stood opposite of each other. While Yuna's face was filled with curiosity, there was a cocky smile on Enko's face. A few minutes ago, Enko challenged Yuna to a sparring match, claiming that she had found Yuna's weakness. Did Yuna believe that she had no weaknesses? No, that would be absurd. Being perfect in combat is impossible. However, did Yuna believe that Enko had the skills necessary to see through Yuna's weaknesses? No. So, Yuna didn't believe that Enko had found a weakness in her technique for even a second. Yuna wasn't looking down on Enko or anything like that, but the difference between raw combat experience and the amount of time they refined their techniques was simply too huge a gulf to cross. There was only a single conclusion: Enko had found some other weakness she could use to distract, trick, or even bribe Yuna with. As far as she knew, there was nothing like this, so she was somewhat interested in what Enko was planning. Moments later, the fight started, but neither of the combatants moved. Yuna waited for Enko to make her move, while Enko didn't even take a combat stance and started talking instead. Well, I have to say this cultivation stuff you taught us is really incredible. Somehow I feel my strength increasing every day. Although Yuna was somewhat confused about why Enko suddenly started chatting, she decided to humor her and answered. Yeah, but you shouldn't get too used to it. Someday you will reach a point where even 100 years won't make much of a difference. Enko nodded her head in understanding and happily continued chatting. Say, I always wondered how widespread the practice of cultivation was in your previous world. Yuna pondered Enko's question for a short moment before answering her. Honestly, that depended on how high-ranked a world you were on. While there were worlds that had only very sparse nature energy, there were also higher worlds with incredible thick nature energy. In the former, it wouldn't be unusual for there to be almost no cultivators at all. Usually, those kinds of worlds tended to focus on technology instead. Since having too much nature energy in the air would mess with the law of physics, those technologies were rarely seen in higher worlds. As for worlds with extremely dense natural energy, pretty much anyone would be born with some cultivation. Enko's smile widened when she heard Yuna's words, confusing her immensely. Enko was clearly leading her somewhere, but she couldn't tell where Enko was going with this at all. I see. However, this world seems to work on different principles, doesn't it? Yuna nodded her head at Enko's question. Indeed. Although the nature energy in the air is decently thick, technology is still striving to some degree. Well, the presence of chakra is weird in itself for me, as no such energy existed in my previous life. Enko seemed to be satisfied with that answer and happily continued talking. Yeah, I thought so. However, despite there being quite a bit of nature energy, we have never met another cultivator before, have we? Yuna felt that she was slowly getting ensnared in a trap, but she couldn't find out how no matter how she looked at it. Frankly, she was very intrigued. Correct. Frankly, I find that a little weird as well, but since most people aren't even aware of the existence of nature energy, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. Maybe, in a few hundred years, someone will pop up who makes the first step towards cultivation by themselves. Enko couldn't help but chuckle at Yuna, who clearly knew that she was walking into a trap but didn't know what kind of trap it was. Frankly, she had expected Yuna to realize what she was getting at for a while now, but maybe Yuna's mind was subconsciously suppressing those thoughts. So, Enko decided to make the big reveal. I see, so no one in this world knows about it, while most people in your previous life did at least know about cultivation. Yuna had a terrible feeling right now. She felt like she was sinking deeper and deeper into Enko's trap without knowing what it entailed. It had been a long time since Yuna felt like this, and she couldn't help but be excited by whatever Enko prepared for her. A massive grin appeared on Enko's face as she said her following words. In that case, couldn't you have chosen a different name for cultivation when you introduced it to us? Yuna's whole body froze when she heard Enko's words. However, not only her body but even her mind came to a complete standstill. That had not happened even once since she reincarnated into this new body. I could have given it another name. It took a while, but her brain rebooted, and this was the first question that popped up. She never thought about that at all. After all, everyone called it cultivation in a previous world, so Yuna did the same without even thinking about it. I could. No one in this world knew about it after all. I could have given it a better name. A name that was much more awesome. Yuna's body swayed a little as her face paled when she made that realization. However, she quickly realized that there was something even worse. She no longer could think about it calmly as she shouted out her grievances with a despair-filled voice. I gave a skill a single-word name. Yuna coughed out blood as her knees landed on the floor, her face twisted in regret and despair. Her dead eyes landed on Enko as she started speaking. I love you, Enko. Tell the rest of my harem that I love them as well. After her last words, Yuna's body collapsed, but before she could fall to the ground, Naruto appeared next to her and cradled her limp body to his chest. Tears were streaming out of his eyes as he tilted his head back and opened his mouth. Nesaan. However, Yuna quickly reopened her eyes and glanced at Enko again. Oh, and don't forget to give Karen a smack on the butt from me. Then, her body slumped over again just for her to reopen her eyes a second time and look at Naruto instead. Oh, and the Raikage earned himself another mannequin cock slap. I leave it to you, Naruto. Then, she slumped over a third time, causing Naruto's eyebrows to twitch in irritation, while Enko chuckled in amusement. Yet again, Naruto opened his mouth. Nissan tilde. Naruto's grief-filled yell came out a little dull this time. Chapter 467, Corruption. Yuna sat on a comfortable couch a few minutes later, with Enko resting her head on Yuna's thighs while Yuna would occasionally feed her a dango. This was her reward for winning the match, and she was rather satisfied. Although Yuna didn't mind spoiling Enko, she couldn't help but be annoyed at herself for not having noticed something so obvious. She was simply too used to the term cultivation and didn't even give it a second thought when she told it to Hinata and Enko for the first time. Sigh to think I, of all people, would make such a massive mistake. Enko snickered in amusement as she opened her mouth, allowing Yuna to feed her another dango. Well, what can I say? Now I'm reaping the rewards of your mistake, so I can't really complain. Damn, it's so annoying that you realized this first, Enko. That last sentence was spoken by Hinata, who sat on Yuna's other side and was currently gazing at Enko with envy. Honestly, I'm rather surprised that neither of us had noticed that this could be used against Yuna before. Yuna and Enko both nodded their heads in agreement as Yuna started combing through Enko's hair while feeding her yet another dango. Indeed. Oh well, I can do nothing about that, so I guess I'll just have to take the loss. At least the cultivation techniques I gave you have proper names. Hinata and Enko shared a quick glance, confirming that neither of them used the full name before quickly averting their eyes so that Yuna wouldn't notice their silent conversation. If it had been any other time, Yuna would have undoubtedly noticed, but she was still grieving due to missing such an incredible opportunity. After a few more minutes of comfortable silence, Yuna resumed speaking. Hey, how about we get some training done? Let me see how far you have advanced in your plundering of the supreme heavenly Tao by grasping. Nope, it's too late to change it. A pout appeared on Yuna's face as she stuffed another dango into Enko's mouth. Fine. You will regret this very soon. Soon you will finally accept the proper way to name a technique in your hearts. I can already feel your resistance crumbling. A smirk appeared on Yuna's face as she saw the slight blush on Enko's face. Don't resist it, Enko, embrace it. Discard your useless feelings of shame. You love those Lomes names, don't you? A shiver went through Anko's spine when she heard Yuna's tempting words. Lately, she caught herself using Yuna's original name rather often. For now, she only said the entire thing in her head, but she has started slipping up more and more. And nonsense, there is no way I will adapt your naming sense. I agree, Yuna. Yuna and Anko's heads immediately snapped towards Hinata, who looked at them in confusion. Moments later, she realized what had just happened, and her face flushed crimson. Ha ha ha, gee guess, the joke fell flat again, hee hee. It's such a pity, ha ha. Nobody is safe. Yuna and Anko decided to ignore Hinata's slip-up and her rather pathetic attempt to sell it as a failed joke and continued lazing around. A few more minutes later, the dango stash was empty and Anko got up from Yuna's lap with a satisfied expression on her face. Ha tilde, that was a pretty lovely reward tilde. I'm honestly surprised you were satisfied with something so simple, Anko. Considering how confident I am in myself, I would have probably accepted a bet where I would allow you to dominate me for a night without repercussions if I were to lose. Anko could only shake her head when she heard that. There is no way you would have lost like that if something like that was at stake. Oh? Why are you so sure about it? I'm not, that's why I decided not to take the gamble. I'm not fond of gambling. Yuna nodded her head in acknowledgement and stood up from the couch while stretching her back. I'm leaving. I got some work to do. Hinata and Anko's eyes widened in surprise when they heard that Yuna would do some work. Why Yuna, are you all right? If there is something wrong, just tell us. Yuna rolled her eyes at Hinata and Anko's behavior. Don't act like I'm never working. I work occasionally when necessary, when there is no other choice. Anyway, I have a speech to write. A speech? Yeah. The Allied shinobi forces will soon gather for the first time. Naturally, someone was chosen to hold a speech for that. Hinata and Anko glanced at each other and confirmed each other's guesses. There is no way Yuna was actually chosen for that. Got it, good luck. Although they doubted that Yuna was chosen to hold the speech, they did not doubt that she would actually do it, so they simply decided to wish her good luck. Hee hee, no worries. This will be an amazing speech. Meanwhile, deep beneath the earth in a well-hidden cave, creepy laughter could be heard. Kufufufu, to think it would be this easy. The only thing I needed was a test subject as good as this white Zetsu thing for me to succeed. The person who was laughing had golden snake-like pupils, dark marking around their eyes, and 4 small horns on its back. This was Orochimaru, who had just entered Sage mode for the first time in his life. Just how many people will I be able to control with the Ida Tensei now? 10. 20. 50. Kufufufu, with this power, I'm invincible. However, Orochimaru got down from his power high almost instantly. No, I can't overestimate myself. Currently, I can only keep this form for about 5 minutes if I move. I need more than this. Orochimaru thought about it for a short moment before a glint passed through his eyes. Jugo's body constitution. However, I'm currently just an Ida Tensei. Will I be able to make changes to my body? Well, no point in not trying, is there? Orochimaru immediately started fiddling with all kinds of scrolls as creepy laughter escaped his mouth again and again. Kufufufu, I can't wait to kill that damn brat with my own hands. How dare she go against her sensei? I will enjoy killing you, Anko. Chapter 468, Fate. A few more days passed, and Yuna and Naruto were currently on a ship heading to a hidden island near Kumo. The duo was presently sitting on the ship's railing and enjoying the salty sea air. After a few minutes of comfortable silence, a scowl appeared on Naruto's face, and he started speaking. Is this war really necessary, Nei-san? Couldn't we have prevented it? Yuna pondered Naruto's questions for a short moment and then answered him. By combining Hisoka's knowledge about the future and the Uzumaki clan's resources, we could have probably prevented it. Naruto's eyes widened when Yuna confirmed his guess. Why didn't we? Won't a lot of people die because of this war? Probably, but there are two good reasons for this war to happen. Good reasons? What good reasons could war possibly have? Yuna sighed deeply when she heard Naruto's question. Naturally, she agreed with Naruto. The number of wars that had a good reason behind them was minuscule. That was also the reason why rebellions were called rebellions and not wars. After all, the word war was pretty much always associated with something negative, which would drastically complicate recruiting people for your cause. The first reason exists due to how unique this war is. Usually, war is a conflict between two or more nations against each other. Even after the war is over, people will continue holding grudges. These grudges rarely vanish and will take at least 3 generations to fade away. Usually, those grudges lead to more wars. However, in this war, there will be no such grudges. Either all of our enemies die, or we get trapped inside a genjutsu. No matter what, there will be no grudges. This means that after we win this war, there is a genuinely high chance for this continent to enter an age of prosperity and peace. Obviously, that won't last forever, but it's better than nothing. Although Naruto clearly wasn't happy about what he had just heard, he could at least understand what Yuna meant. In conclusion, it was for the greater good. However, Naruto was also aware that if that was the only reason, Yuna wouldn't have accepted it. She simply wasn't the greater good kind of person. Okay, I can more or less accept that, but what is the other reason? That should be the main one, right? Yuna nodded her head in agreement while her face twisted in disgust, surprising Naruto. It is fate. As the child of prophecy, you are fated to confront Kaguya in the end and seal her away. This war is the safest way to reach that outcome. Naruto's eyes bulged when he heard that. Naturally, he had heard about being the so-called child of prophecy, but he had always dismissed it as nonsense. Before Naruto could say anything else, Yuna started shaking her head with an annoyed expression on her face. Frankly, you will feel fate's fetters very heavily during that fight. So far, you were almost always near me, someone not influenced by fate, but that last battle is inevitable, so I can't do anything about it. I'm an anomaly in this world, there is no doubt about it. Considering the Goju-Ryu is significantly stronger than you would be without my presence, I believe you will feel heavily restricted during that fight after all. Yuna stopped talking and allowed Naruto to come up with his own conclusion. It took a few minutes and then he widened his eyes in surprise. No way. The fates of Indra and Asura. Sasuke and I need to fight her together. Yuna only shrugged her shoulders at that. Frankly, she had no idea and only considered it to be a possibility. It's not like she knew what fate had in store for Naruto. She could only make guesses based on what Hisoka had told her. Obviously, that wasn't the least bit reliable since this was another timeline. Yuna had no idea if Kaguya would really pop up or if another Otsutsuki would come out. Hell, she didn't even know whether it would be an Otsutsuki. I'm not sure, but it's a possibility. Naruto's frown deepened as he started thinking about his situation. He somewhat doubted that Sasuke would be willing to cooperate. Somehow, Naruto thought that even if it caused the whole world to be trapped inside a genjutsu, Sasuke would still come after Yuna for the sake of his useless pride. Naruto sighed deeply as he continued thinking about what he should do, and after a few more minutes of silence, he resumed talking. You previously mentioned that you are not influenced by fate and that you severed that connection yourself. Is it possible for me to do the same? Obviously, Naruto would rather not be forced to team up with Sasuke. Even fighting alone would be a better alternative in his book. Yuna saw the determination in Naruto's eyes and could only sadly shake her head. Currently, that is impossible. The closer someone is to a fated incident, the harder and riskier it becomes to sever their fate. Even if I currently had the power I wielded in my previous life, I would have advised you against making me do it. Naruto made an ugly expression when he heard that Yuna would rather not do it even if she was at the peak of her power. Evidently, he would have been the one to suffer if she did, but it still showed Naruto how deeply he was stuck in this nonsense. As he continued contemplating, he realized something else. However, that means that it should be much easier after that incident is over, right? Yuna nodded in approval when she heard Naruto's question. You are correct. After this whole mess is over, I should have the necessary strength to help you do it. Determination appeared on Naruto's face as he gave Yuna a nod of acknowledgement. Then please help me with this, Nei-san. Obviously. No longer being fettered by the string of fate feels fantastic. Trust me, Naruto. I do, Nei-san. Good job distracting him from figuring out that you want this war to happen because you want to duke it out with Madara. No need to act coy. We both know that you have the same desire. True. Besides, the two reasons I told Naruto are true. Even I wouldn't sacrifice a bunch of innocent people so that I can fight someone strong. I might be crazy, but I'm not crazy. Although that makes no sense, that makes sense. Chapter 469, Squid vs. Octopus. After Yuna and Naruto were done talking, a comfortable silence settled between them as they continued looking at the surrounding sea. You two look like two old people enjoying the dawn of their life. That isn't youthful at all. The duo moved their heads to look at the source of the voice and saw Might Guy making a nice guy pose in all his green spandex wearing glory. Naruto couldn't help but shake his head when he saw his ever-present grin. Guy, it seems like you are yet again in a youthful mood. Guy's smile widened even further as Naruto felt like one of Guy's teeth just twinkled for a second. That's right, I'm more youthful than ever today. Actually, I have been wondering about something, Guy. Guy immediately stopped laughing and put all his attention on Naruto. He might be a widower, but he was always happy if he could help people. I see, please ask away, Naruto. Naruto nodded his head in acknowledgement and started speaking with a spark of mischief in his eyes. When Tsunade gave you this mission, did she tell you to actively stop Nei-san and me from joining the war, or are you just supposed to go through the motion to pacify the wreckage? A crack appeared on Guy's smile as an awkward expression appeared on his face, and he started nervously looking around in case any Kumo shinobi were around. When he saw nobody, he sighed in relief. Please don't say stuff like that out loud. What if someone who shouldn't hear you heard you? Naruto shrugged his shoulders at that like it wasn't his problem and casually revealed why he had no problem saying stuff like that aloud. I can feel the location of every person on this boat, and no one is near us. Well, someone is trying to listen in on our conversation, but we made sure he can't hear anything. As Naruto said that, Guy could hear a quiet splat in the background, followed by a string of curses. He could only smile wryly when he realized that Yuna and Naruto had pretty much the whole ship under their surveillance. A sigh of defeat escaped Guy's mouth as his shoulders slumped. Oh well, I guess it doesn't matter. Tsunade-sama told us to only put on an act for the people from Kumo. This time, Yuna decided to say a few words as well. Honestly, I would have probably started doubting her intelligence if she thought anyone could stop us from joining this mess. After all, we can teleport over there at any time, and no one can stop us. Guy smiled wryly when he heard Yuna's words and nodded his head. Indeed, someone doesn't even have to factor in Yuna and Naruto's strength to realize that blocking their path is impossible. If I had to make a guess, I think I would at least need to open 7 gates to fight against one of them. Maybe even all 8, as I'm not sure how strong they actually are. Guy couldn't help but chuckle in amusement at the image of him opening the gate of death and Yuna and Naruto simply teleporting away. That would probably be the most embarrassing death in shinobi history. Moments later, the ship started shaking as heavy waves crashed into it, causing the crew to panic. Before anyone could understand what was happening, 10 gigantic tentacles burst out of the sea, causing Yuna to sigh. Have we suddenly switched genres? Please tell me you are talking about the giant monster battle genre. Sure, let's both pretend I did. While Naruto was giving Yuna a weirded-out look, Guy hastily started speaking. I don't know what you are talking about, Yuna, but we need to get ready for combat. A gigantic squid revealed itself, causing Guy to panic a little, as neither Yuna nor Naruto seemed to get ready to fight it off. Before Guy could say anything else, Naruto started speaking again. Say, Guy, who would you think would win? A giant squid or a giant octopus? Huh? Naturally, Guy was utterly dumbfounded by Naruto's seemingly random question. What are you talking about? This isn't the time for random questions. We are still quite far away from our destination, so if our ship sinks, we are in quite a bit of trouble. Yuna and Naruto both absent-mindedly nodded their heads as they looked in the same direction, seemingly waiting for something. Well, no matter how I look at it, the octopus will win this one, Naruto. Yeah, I agree, Nei-san. This matchup is a little unfair after all. Guy couldn't help but be bewildered by the duo's nonchalant attitude and was just about to simply drag them away when a loud scream echoed over the ocean. Whee! A monstrous octopus with a somewhat human-shaped upper body and a bull's head burst out of the ocean and punched the squid, sending it flying. And moments later, the two humongous figures started duking it out. Oh, monster fight, nice. It's been a while, hasn't it, Naruto? Yeah. Especially since I couldn't see what Anko was doing during Nagato's attack on Konoha. While the Konoha shinobi on the boat were dumbfounded by the epic clash in front of them, the Kumo shinobi immediately started cheering. Oh, it's Killer Bee-sama. Show that stupid squid what you can do, Killer Bee-sama. The faces of the Konoha shinobi grew solemn when they realized that they were currently watching Kumo's Hachibai Jinchuriki fighting in a fully transformed state. Obviously, there were a lot of rumors about Killer Bee being capable of perfectly transforming into the Hachibai, but most of the people present dismissed it as mere rumors. They couldn't help but grow slightly fearful when they realized what kind of power the being they were watching held. However, they quickly realized something else as their gazes landed on Yuna and Naruto, who were currently stuffing their face with popcorn while watching the fight. There were rumors of Yuna and Naruto being capable of fully transforming as well. They couldn't help but shudder a little at the thought of someone as chaotic as Yuna wielding this kind of power while being rather happy about it at the same time. After all, with two people holding this kind of power, there was nothing Konoha needed to be afraid of. Chapter 470, yet another story of the past, began. Inside a vast hall, a woman with blue hair and pure white eyes sat on a throne that seemed to be entirely made out of ice. The throne was cushioned with materials that looked like they were woven out of snow, giving the throne a mysterious feeling. Behind her stood a single maid. She would occasionally twitch while weird buzzing sounds were constantly radiating from her position. There were more people in the room, but neither of them paid any attention to her. In front of the said woman and her maid were 11 people. 10 of them were standing with their backs straight, while one was kowtowing on the ground. After a few moments of silence, a mature man with blue hair, black cat ears and tail stepped forward. He glanced at the person kowtowing on the ground for a split second before his gaze returned to the person sitting on the throne. Mother, why did you summon us? A wide smile appeared on the woman's face when she saw the serious expression on her child's face. She looked at her eldest son with love-filled eyes and started speaking. Today, I have decided to initiate a plot I have been planning for quite a while. So, I have invited my 10 most prominent children to help me with it. The backs of the 10 people straightened even further when they heard that their mother wanted to rely on them. So far, it was always the other way around, so they couldn't help but anticipate finally being able to help her. A woman with crimson, almost fire-like hair and a pair of dog ears stepped forward with an eager expression on her face. "Mother Yuna, please tell us what to do. We will succeed no matter what you order us to do." The woman on the throne, Yuna, nodded in satisfaction when she heard the words of her eldest daughter. Funnily enough, Yuna's eldest daughter didn't inherit Yuna's affinity for ice in the slightest and actually had an affinity for fire of all things. Naturally, Yuna didn't care and simply found it rather curious. She wouldn't discriminate against her children just because they had an unusual affinity. Well, as most of you had undoubtedly guessed already, this gathering has something to do with the single person in the room who is not of my bloodline. As Yuna said that, 11 pairs of eyes landed on the still kneeling young man, causing him to shudder. "You may get up and raise your head." The kneeling person hesitated for a short moment before he got up and lifted his face, revealing the face of a relatively innocent-looking young man. That, paired with his overall meek look, made him look incredibly frail. "Disciple greets the founder." The moment the young man saw Yuna, he immediately bowed to her and spoke a respectful greeting. Yuna couldn't help but chuckle at the young man, causing a chill to go down his spine. "Although your words sound rather respectful, isn't it rude to greet me while you are using a technique to change how your face looks like?" Another chill went down the young man's back when his secret was revealed so casually as he instantly turned around and fled the room, resulting in another chuckle from Yuna. "You don't actually believe you can run away from me, do you?" Seemingly without any movement from Yuna, the young man's feet froze to the ground, preventing him from running away. As soon as the young man was caught, he glared at Yuna with hatred, making her laugh in amusement. Now, no need to glare at me like that. How about you release that face-changing technique first so everyone can see your real face?" The young man hesitated for a short moment before he simply did what he was told to do. After all, he was already captured, so he could only wait and see whether he would get an opportunity to flee. Moments later, he touched his face, causing it to change quite a bit. A few of Yuna's 10 children couldn't help but reel back in shock when they saw the innocent-looking man's real face. It was a visage filled with nothing but hatred and vengeance. Now, he looked like someone who was willing to sacrifice everything he had just to get what he desired. Seeing the young man's real facial expression, Yuna couldn't help but smile. This was precisely the kind of person she was hoping to find. "Good. Very good. Someone like you is exactly the person I need for my plan. But first, I will ask you a very important question. Obviously, you desire revenge. I don't know who your target is, so let me ask you this. Is the target connected to my sect in any shape, form, or fashion?" The young man was taken aback for a short moment before realizing what was going on. "She wants to use me. Or rather, she wants to use my desire for revenge for something. However, if my target has something to do with her sect, she will eliminate me here and now. Luckily, that is not the case. Additionally, I don't mind being used as long as I can get my revenge. No, my target has nothing to do with this sect. I joined with a fake identity to gain the strength necessary to get my revenge while staying anonymous. I hold no grudges against this sect." Yuna and the young man locked eyes for a moment, and after Yuna confirmed that she could see no lies in the eyes of the young man, she nodded in approval as a broad smile appeared on her face. "Very well. In that case, I have a rather interesting mission for you." The young man straightened his back when he heard Yuna's words, as his expression showed nothing but determination. He realized that this might be a chance to increase the pace at which he got stronger significantly. "Please tell me what you want me to do, sect mistress." A rather peculiar smile appeared on Yuna's face as she answered the young man's inquiry. I want you to get bullied, Tilda." Chapter 471, Yet Another Story of the Past, again, Part 2. "You want me to get bullied?" Question marks popped up above the young man's head when she heard what kind of mission Yuna had for him. "I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean by that, sect mistress." A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. I want you to be my sect's weakest link. The young man pondered on Yuna's words for a short moment before realizing what she wanted him to do. I see. You want me to continue using my face-changing technique, and the more I get bullied, the more I will change back to my original appearance, making people think that I resent this sect. Then, there is a high chance that enemies of this sect will try to use me as a tool, making me somewhat of a double agent. Yuna nodded in approval at the young man's conclusion. He seems to have a good head on his shoulders, greatly pleasing Yuna. However, before the young man could continue his thoughts, Yuna interrupted him. However, why would someone approach you with your current status? After all, you have only recently joined my sect and have no connections worth mentioning. He nodded in agreement as he patiently waited for Yuna to continue. Clearly, she had already planned everything. Yuna's gaze wandered from the young man to her 10 children. That is where you 10 come in. I want one of you to take him in as a follower, while I want the other 9 to look down on him openly. Before anyone could answer Yuna, her gaze returned to the young man. However, before we do anything else, I would like to know if you are willing to do it. Naturally, you will be compensated for your trouble. The young man couldn't help but be surprised that he actually had a choice. He expected Yuna to simply order him to do what she wanted while ignoring his opinion. However, he didn't ponder Yuna's question for long. How can I not agree? My actions will help the sect discover spies, and I might even be able to sniff out some hidden plots. By making such considerable contributions, surely there will be a massive reward waiting for me. He was just about to agree when Yuna continued talking. Before you agree, I want you to think about this properly. If you decide to take this role, you will be frequently beaten and humiliated. Yuna's words caused the young man to pause as he restarted thinking about his actions. She is right. Living in this sect will probably be like living in hell if I agree. However, I don't care. There is nothing I'm not willing to do for my revenge. So what if I have to live through hell for a few years? As long as I reach my goal in the end, I don't mind. Yuna saw a ruthless glint pass through the young man's eyes, causing her to smile. As expected, revenge-crazed people are still the easiest to control. Dangle a chance to get their revenge in front of them, and they instantly become obedient. Before I agree or disagree, may I know what kind of compensation I will receive. Yuna was even more impressed that the person in front of her had at least the ability to think somewhat rationally. Other people with his mindset would probably jump at the opportunity without giving it a second thought. This one is at least smart enough to ask what he will get. 10,000 Medi. Kofla level spiritual stones per DA. Kofa we. Koth month. When Yuna was about to reveal what kind of compensation she would offer, one of her children quickly connected to her with telepathy and started scolding her for wanting to give the young man way too much wealth. Considering drool was almost coming out of his mouth, that was probably correct, as he seemed to be overwhelmed by getting just 10,000 small spirit stones per month. Well, Yuna usually got her wealth from robbing Gra. Kof gaining the inheritance of some venerable ancestors, so she had ridiculous amounts of wealth and no idea what it was actually worth. Although the young man was drooling a little due to how many spirit stones he could get, he still wasn't sure if it was worth it. Although having pretty much unlimited spirit stones would definitely speed up his cultivation, there was a big problem with that. Before he could think about it any further, Yuna resumed talking, instantly blowing away all his troubles. Additionally, you will be allowed to pick one cultivation technique from my sect's library. Except for the forbidden ones, you can choose freely. Yes, that was the problem the young man had. Having a lot of spirit stones was definitely a good thing, but if he only had a mediocre cultivation technique, what would be their use? Not everyone could be a monster like Yuna, who created and evolved their cultivation technique by instinct. The young man stepped forward and bowed to Yuna again. I'm willing to accept this mission. Yuna nodded her head as her gaze landed on her 10 children. Well, which one of you will take him in? Moments later, a woman with pure white skin and 2 small horns on her head stepped forward. I'm willing, Mum. One of my followers has a nasty attitude and I was about to send him away, but I think he might be helpful for this. Yuna nodded in approval as she eyed her other children. You 9 know your job. A few derisive comments should be more than enough to make your followers take action. However, and I cannot stress this enough, if one of them goes too far and cripples or even kills our bully victim, there will be severe consequences. Is that understood? While asking her last question, intense pressure filled the room, causing Yuna's 10 children to straighten their backs. They realized that that last question wasn't asked by Yuna in her role as their mother but by her role as the leader of this sect. Yes, sect mistress. Yuna nodded in approval when her children realized what her last question meant. Her gaze returned to the young man since she wanted to say a few more words, but her face stiffened as soon as her eyes landed on him. The young man was lying passed out on the ground. That's definitely not my fault. He must have some hidden sickness. All 10 of her children rolled their eyes in tandem when they heard Yuna's shameless excuse. Chapter 472, Yet Another Story of the Past, Again Part 3. A few days later, Yuna's eldest son, Omura, walked through the core area of Yuna's sect, the Heavenly Divine Ice sect of Eternal Frost, followed by a large group of followers. He looked at the sign majestically showing that name and sighed deeply. I really wonder how Mother came up with a name like that. She truly is a genius. What are you sighing for, Senior Brother? Don't worry about it, Yanaga, I just couldn't help but sigh when I saw the majestic name my mother gave our sect. Yanaga's face stiffened a little as a little bit of cold sweat started flowing down his back. Yes, a truly majestic name. Cough. Indeed, such an incredible naming sense. Yes, truly marvelous. As expected of Sect Mistress Sama. As soon as Yanagi finished giving a slightly awkward answer, a few more people enthusiastically started praising Yuna. While Omura considered Yanagi to be his friend, despite the respectful tone, the others were just bootlickers. He considered sending them away, but he usually used them as errand boys, something he didn't want his friend to become, so he decided to keep them for now. A few moments later, a tall woman with pure white skin and 2 horns on her head walked past Omura. Just like Omura, a small group of people followed her around. A smile appeared on Omura's face when he noticed his half-sister, causing him to give her a friendly nod, which she reciprocated. Although there would occasionally be some conflict between Yuna's children, they usually got along rather well. Especially Omura, the eldest son, had a good relationship with most of his siblings. While she was walking past him, Omura's eyes landed on one of the people following her, causing him to click his tongue in annoyance. Time to start Mother's plan. Do you dislike that kid, Omura-sama? As expected, one of his brutal followers immediately picked up on his dissatisfaction and asked him what was wrong. Yeah, I dislike him. Apparently, my little sister made him one of her followers and even gave him some cultivation recourses. What? I thought he was just a servant. Why is such a meek-looking boy allowed to follow your esteemed sister? Omura's face darkened even further when he heard his follower's question. I don't know. She claims that she saw his hidden potential, but I think he simply managed to sweet-talk my innocent little sister. Would you like me to deal with him? The other followers gasped in surprise when they heard that offer. Obviously, they weren't surprised by the proposal itself since none of them would hesitate to kill someone to get Omura's favor. What surprised them was that someone actually dared to propose something like that at all. After all, Omura was strictly against doing stuff like that. They expected Omura to give the person who made the offer a heavy scolding, or maybe even a beating, but, to their surprise, he was genuinely thinking about what he had just heard. Fine, do it, but whatever you do, you are not allowed to cripple or kill him. May ask why. If you do, my mother will find out about it. The follower hastily nodded his head before a nasty expression appeared on his face. How about I do it in a way that will make it look like a natural death? Omura paused his steps when he heard those words. He looked at the person who just asked that question like he was this world's greatest idiot. Do you honestly think you could do it in a way my mother can't see through? That mother who grew up as an orphan in a lower world and somehow reached the peak of this realm's power. Do you have that kind of ability? A shiver of terror went through the follower's spine when he realized what he had just offered. Doing it in a way she wouldn't notice. Am I insane? That woman fought against the world and won multiple times. She never joined any sect or organization and was always alone, yet she came out on top. I apologize for my careless words, Omura-sama. Omura snorted in disdain and waved him away, causing him to leave with a wicked expression on his face. When Omura saw that expression, he could only sigh. This is what you wanted, young man. You could have rejected Mother's request whenever you wanted, but you decided to go through it for the sake of your revenge. You really can't blame me for this. A year later, the previously mentioned young man entered his home in the core region of the sect. As the follower of one of the sect's strongest people, he naturally had the privilege to live here. However, unlike the other houses in the region, his was smeared with graffiti and all the windows were broken. The young man was currently sitting in the house's only room that wasn't damaged. The cultivation room. Obviously, the room wasn't intact because of the goodwill of the people, but because the last time someone destroyed it, he was heavily punished. After all, the formations in these rooms would increase someone's cultivation speed and were thus the sect's resources. The young man sat cross-legged inside a complex formation. Bruises could be found all over his body, but he had a broad smile on his face despite that. He just had another breakthrough. At first, he honestly wasn't sure if taking the deal was a good idea, but by now, he no longer had any doubts about it. His strength was soaring at a ridiculous rate as he had pretty much infinite resources. Usually, if someone were to overuse spirit stones like he did, their foundation would become a mess. Fortunately, there were a lot of chances for him to battle superior opponents as more and more people came after him to beat him up for daring to stand near the princess or something equally ridiculous. Yes, it was painful and he would often be humiliated, but if someone asked him whether he regretted making the deal, he would decisively answer with a no. 1 year, maybe 2, and he would have the strength necessary to get his revenge. What he expected to take 20, 30, or even 40 years was somehow achieved within 2 to 3. Moments later, someone opened the door. At first, he was frowning, but a small smile appeared on his face after seeing who it was. Greetings, senior sister. It's been a while. Congratulations on your breakthrough. Have you been roped into a few more plots I can tell Mum about? The young man straightened his back when he heard the young woman's question. Yes, someone asked me whether I'm willing to participate in. And just like that, another plot targeting Yuna's sect was stopped before it could happen. Chapter 473, yet another story of the past, again, final part. Just like that, a few more years passed and the previously mentioned young man was currently standing alone in a vast courtyard surrounded by nothing but corpses. Ha ha ha, I did it. I finally did it, ha ha ha. Madness-filled laughter echoes over the courtyard as a sea of blood slowly started covering the ground. Finally, I got revenge for everything you put me through, ha ha ha. Maddened laughter echoed over the courtyard for a long time, scaring everyone who wanted to investigate it away. The creepy laughter faded away after multiple hours, allowing other people to discover the mountain of corpses the young man had left behind. Instead of being terrified by the horrific scene in front of them. Ha ha ha, these damn monsters are finally dead. Today, their reign of terror finally ends. They were elated. The young man clearly wasn't the only one these people offended in the past. The young man returned to Yuna's sect with empty eyes a few hours later. The fire that had kept him going for a long time was extinguished. He no longer cared about anything else. He briefly considered killing himself, but decided against it. He felt like he still owed Yuna a debt for making his revenge possible. Yes, possible, not accelerated. After finally attacking his enemies, he saw just how many hidden cards they had, making him realize that he would have never gained enough strength to fulfill his desire if he was by himself. Only through the ridiculous amounts of resources he got and the infinite opportunities to fight people stronger than him in a safe environment did he reach the level of power he needed to succeed. Now, my life no longer matters. Even if Yuna-sama asked me to die for her, I will do so without a single regret. I no longer have any purpose, so I will continue to be useful to her as long as possible and then simply fade away into nothingness. As soon as the two people guarding the gate, contempt filled their eyes, and one of them approached the young man. "The sect mistress wants to see you, leech." It seems like she finally had enough of you leeching resources from her daughter and has decided to deal with you. The young man completely ignored the two guards and walked past them while only registering that Yuna wanted to talk with him. If it were a few years ago, the two guards would have undoubtedly beaten him up, but they no longer dared to do so after the last beating they received from him. Damn it, that trash gets fed massive amounts of resources and managed to surpass our strength by now. Just imagine how powerful we would have been if all those cultivation resources were given to us. Obviously, those two guards were delusional. Someone who was only qualified to guard the door was not someone who could endure what the young man went through all these years. A few minutes later, the young man was back in the throne room, where he accepted Yuna's offer all those years ago. Without a second of hesitation, he got on his knees and kowed out toward Yuna. "Greetings, Sect Mistress-sama." "Ma, there really is no need for all these formalities, is there? You may get up." The young man got up when he heard Yuna's order, and a moment later, their gazes met. "Oh? How was your revenge? Did you enjoy it?" The young man couldn't help but be taken aback when he heard Yuna's words. How did she find out that I got my revenge with just a glance? After seeing the confusion in the young man's eyes, Yuna chuckled in amusement. "Boy, I have been sitting on this throne ever since before your great-grandparents were born. There is nothing you can hide from me." The young man blushed a little at being seen through so easily and at being called boy, but didn't comment any further on it. After all, he was fully aware that Yuna was right. What kind of secret could a youngster like him possibly have in front of a monster like Yuna? "May I ask why you summoned me here, Sect Mistress-sama?" Yuna hummed an acknowledgement as a small smile appeared on her face. "Naturally, it is to cash in on everything you have done so far. You probably expected me to use you as a disposable pawn, but there is no way I would use someone as useful as you like that." The young man couldn't help but be confused by Yuna's words. "Useful? How am I still useful? Less and less people are contacting me in my role as a spy, so my real status is probably more or less known to outside forces. I don't think I have much use left except for sacrificing my life for something." When Yuna saw the confusion in his eyes, she could only shake her head. Although revenged crazed idiots are easy to control, their single-mindedness can make them really annoying. "Sai, just where do you think your current strength places you in my sect?" More and more question marks popped up above the young man's head as he pondered on Yuna's question. "My current strength? I'm honestly not too sure. I spent most of my time either fighting other people or cultivating, so I still have only a loose understanding of this sector. Regularly get beaten up, so it can't be that high, right? I still get defeated rather regularly, so somewhere around the middle." "Ugh, you are more oblivious than I thought you would be. The reason you get beaten so often is because multiple older people are ganging up on you. If I were to compare you to other people of your age, my children are the only ones in my sect who could fight and defeat you in a one-on-one. You have by far surpassed anyone else." The young man immediately got dazed when he heard that. Was he really that strong? Frankly, he could hardly believe it. After all, he was just born in a remote region with pretty much no cultivators at all. How in the world did he manage to catch up to geniuses that received plenty of benefits from birth? However, Yuna wasn't done talking yet. Additionally, if I were to order you to die, what would you do? I would die. There was not a moment of hesitation in the young man's answer, making Yuna smile. That's right, you are worthy of me keeping you around. Good talent and high loyalty. I will probably assign you as a guard to one of my younger children soon. The young man's eyes widened in surprise when he heard Yuna's words. Although it sounded like a relatively simple job, being assigned as a guard for one of Yuna's children was no joke. After all, that meant that Yuna trusted you to guard her child. A child that would very likely be targeted by an outside force. It was a hazardous job, but the rewards were on another level as well. The previously extinguished fire in the young man's eyes reignited as he swore on his very being that he would protect Yuna's lineage no matter what happened. I live to serve, Yuna-sama. Ha ha ha, very good. I'm looking forward to what heights you will reach, Jeremy. The young man's face deadpanned when he heard Yuna's words. My name is Jeff. Ha ha ha, I was just kidding. Obviously, I know your name, Jerome. Right now, some doubts appeared in Jeff's mind. A few days later, a large group of disciples and elders gathered in the sect square. While the disciples were standing in front of a large podium, the elders were seated on it. Most of the disciples were whispering to each other, discussing what might be the occasion for this gathering. Moments later, Yuna appeared on the stage, immediately silencing all discussions as the disciples looked at Yuna in awe. Although there were a lot of rumors that she was an insane pervert that constantly caused trouble, none of the disciples would ever believe such outrageous rumors. To them, Yuna was a legendary character. Despite Yuna's presence, the whispering returned when the people saw Jeff following Yuna on the podium. Oh, so we'll be seeing a public execution, not bad. Pa, this is too much glamour for that leech. True, but I will still enjoy the show. One of the elders sent a sharp glare into the crowd, immediately silencing them just as Yuna sat down on her designated seat and Jeff kneeled on one knee a few meters away from her. Ma, no need to be so stern, second elder Tilda. The second elder rolled his eyes at Yuna but didn't comment any further. Even before this sect was founded, he and Yuna had been friends, so being called second elder instead of his real name annoyed him a little, so Yuna would call him that without fail. Well, as most of you have probably expected, today's gathering is about the young man kneeling in front of me. Yuna's smile broadened when she saw everyone's eager looks, and it widened even further at the thought of breaking all those expectations they had. Today, this young man will be awarded for his contributions to the sect. His rewards are a promotion to core disciple and the honor of guarding my youngest child. Additionally, he will be allowed to pick one cultivation technique from the library and one artifact from the treasury. What? Although most people managed to rein in their shock, a few couldn't help but exclaim loudly, causing Yuna to chuckle in amusement. Oh, my Tilda, seems like quite a few of you are rather surprised by that. Care to elaborate what the problem is? As she said that, her eyes landed on one of the disciples who couldn't keep his mouth shut, causing a shiver to go down his spine. There and naturally is and no problem, Sect Mistress Sama. I was just surprised since I didn't know the Leakoff senior brother made such great achievements. Yuna nodded in agreement when she heard the disciple's words. Of course, you didn't. After all, he was working as a double spy for me for the last few years, selling information I tell him to sell to other sects, while simultaneously reporting the spies that contacted him for information. Overall, over 100 spies were caught due to his contributions, while a total of 7 underhanded plots against me, my children, and my sect were prevented due to him. Does anyone dare to compare contributions with him? The sound of everyone's chins hitting the ground simultaneously echoed over the gathering. Even some of the elders couldn't believe what they had just heard. No one could believe that the loser that supposedly was leeching resources from one of Yuna's children actually had such an important role. Although not everyone got it, after realizing that the dislike for Jeff initially stemmed from Yuna's children, while even the reason for everyone disliking him was due to Yuna's children, a lot of people started seeing Jeff in a new light. To think he was such a noble person. He was willing to endure years of bullying to help this sect out. Rather than a leech, isn't he a hero? Meanwhile, Jeff was barely following what was going on around him, as he was currently regretting what he had done to his enemies. Damn it, I should have tortured that shithead patriarch longer. And why in the world did I instantly kill that bastard elder? I'm such an idiot. Yes, he was obviously a hero. Chapter 474, Evil Yuna. A few minutes later, the fight was over and B landed on the ship's deck with a smile on his face. B was a large muscular man with dark skin and white hair. His eye color was invisible as he wore a pair of sunglasses and there were 7 swords strapped to his back. Yo, Ima. Please wait a moment. However, Yuna interrupted him mid-speech, causing him to look at Yuna with annoyance on his face. Before he could resume speaking, Yuna flicked her wrist and a thick book appeared in her hands. A book with lyrics and rap techniques from a rap god of another world. I will give this to you if you never try to rap in front of me again. Supreme author style, dodging the task to write cringy rap with a cheap trick no jutsu. Yuna looked around in confusion. She felt like she had just heard an adequately named technique, but she didn't know where it came from. She got the impression that it was from behind a wall for some reason. She shook her head to get rid of her idle thoughts and put her attention back on Bei, who was eyeing the book she was holding with suspicion. Before he could doubt her, Yuna shrugged her shoulders and tossed the book towards him. He swiftly caught it and started randomly shuffling through the pages while mumbling to himself and occasionally nodding his head. Weak knees, vomit. I see, so you can do it like that, Mom. Spaghetti. What is spaghetti? Anyway. After a few minutes of reading, B managed to avert his eyes from the book, closed it, and carefully stowed it away. Anyway, the name's B, the Kaya, cough. Welcome to Turtle Island. Nei-san, why did you do that? I wanted to hear him rap. You can hear his rapping as much as you want while I'm not present, Naruto. Should we start with the mission already? While Naruto was pouting, a man wearing the standard Konoha shinobi attire approached the trio and reminded them of their so-called mission. He had short, brown hair and almond-shaped eyes. His name was Yamato Tenzo. Frankly, Yuna found him rather funny. Apparently, he could use wood style to some degree, and Yuna was pretty sure that he thought he was sent on this mission in case he had to restrain Kurama. Although it was confirmed that wood style could suppress a bijou, there was a limit to that. A fake wood style that was only available to him due to Orochimaru's experiments obviously couldn't do much. Nevertheless, Yuna wanted to agree with his suggestion, but B had something else to say. Well, since you gave me something good, how about I show you something interesting in return? There is no reason to rush the mission or whatever. Yuna and Naruto glanced at each other for a moment before nodding their heads. Sure, let's go. B nodded and led them away, leaving a dumbfounded Yamato behind. B, but what about the mission? Guy shook his head when he saw Yamato's situation and put his hand on his shoulder. Don't worry about this. In the end, we are here to stop the trio from joining the war, so the more time they waste, the better. Even though it's useless from the start. Yamato's shoulders slumped when he heard Guy's words. Although that was true, he still wasn't happy about it. Luckily, that last sentence was only thought up by Guy and not actually spoken out loud, or he might have become even more dissatisfied. Meanwhile, Yuna, Naruto, and B reached their destination. A waterfall with a small piece of land in front of it. This is the waterfall of truth, and when you meditate on that small circular island, you will be confronted by an evil ear. Yuna's eyes showed some interest after inspecting the whole place. There certainly was some kind of mystical energy in the air. This place certainly aroused her curiosity. On the other hand, Naruto shuddered in fear when he heard B's words. Our evil selves will appear. As in, if Nasan meditates on that, an evil version of her will appear. I need to prevent her from doing that, no Matt. All right, let's do it, Tilda. Before Naruto could confirm his resolve, Yuna casually sat down in the middle of the island and started meditating, causing Naruto's face to pale. Run away. Naruto decisively made a decision and turned around. He was just about to start sprinting when B's following words almost caused him to face plant. Oh, the evil you only appears in your mind. Probably should have mentioned that. Although Naruto was a little annoyed that B didn't mention that part earlier, he sighed in relief. However, doubts started appearing in his mind not even a second later. It's Nasan, after all. Maybe her evil version will find a way to pop up out here. Better prepare myself. As he finished his thoughts, he stealthily started covering the whole area in seals. If he would perish anyway, he might as well do so while doing everything he could. A resolve that roughly translates to, if I have enough seals in the area, running away will become easier. Meanwhile, Yuna appeared in a dark space and looked around in curiosity. Interesting, this is not a Minscape but something else. I could probably break out of here by force if I tried, but that would be boring. A few seconds later, a second person appeared. She looked exactly like Yuna, but her eyes were entirely black. Evil Yuna sneered at Yuna, who did the same towards Evil Yuna. The duo slowly walked towards each other, every step seemingly causing space to crack, and only a few seconds later, they stood directly in front of each other while still sneering at the other party. Then, seemingly with no indicator, both of them moved. The duo collided, and moments later, both of them were on the ground, making out with each other. As expected. If a narcissistic pervert who readily proclaims herself as the most beautiful woman meets a copy of herself, this is the only outcome.